This reading I want to do is Sarah Silverman's book, The Bedwetter. Stories of Courage, Redemption, and Pee. The Bedwetter. It's a really funny book. It talks about her life growing up in New Hampshire and how she got into comedy and all that jazz, what it was like making her show. There's a lot of interesting, funny stuff in here. I was going to just hop up ahead and go to page 84 at the bottom. And then I'm going to hop ahead a little bit and read two little things here, two little excerpts from her book. So, The Bedwetter, Sarah Silverman. Which, by the way, that's a hilarious title for a book. Courage, Redemption, and Pee. Alright. One night, after hanging out at the Comedy Cellar and trying to get on stage, we went upstairs to the Olive Tree, a restaurant where all the comics hung out after their sets. It was 1:30 in the morning and I was sitting with my buddy Dave Juskow, who I had met through my then boyfriend Bedwetter. An old hippie guy came in and handed us 2 tabs of acid. I honestly don't remember how this happened, but without a thought we popped it in our mouths. For the next 13 and a half hours, Dave and I went bananas. We wound up hanging out with semi-homeless strangers in Washington Square Park, experiencing every possible emotion. It happened to be the 3rd of July and already firecrackers were going off everywhere. We were convinced we were at war. About 5 hours into it, we decided we didn't want to be tripping anymore. We wanted to go through the motions of normal life. Not that this was up to us. We walked to Dave's car, got in, and pulled out to the street. As we sat at a red light, Dave realized he had forgotten how to drive. The light turned green and we both panicked, paralyzed as it turned yellow, red, and back to green again. Luckily, it was early in the morning and we were on a side street, so there were no cars yet behind us. I switched seats with Dave, but as it turned out, I didn't remember how to drive either. We were sure that a cop was going to pull up beside us any minute. I popped out of the car, went to a phone booth, and dialed the one number I could remember. Louis C.K.'s. Louis was usually up all night and into the morning, not experimenting with drugs so much as teaching himself Russian or how to play guitar. He picked up the phone and calmly talked me through. You know how to drive. Don't think about it. Just let your body remember. You are fine and you can do this. I got back into the car and as mindlessly as I could, parked it. Dave and I decided that Louis was God as we walked back to my apartment, the city now beginning to hum with early morning commuter traffic. We made it to my little room and played my roommate's Squeeze singles album over and over. Then, fully clothed, we went into the shower and turned on the water. In movies, people trying to get sober were always taking cold showers in their clothes, so it seemed like the right thing to do. My year off was filled with a lot of these nights. Not all of them involved LSD trips per se, but they were all, as the 70s would say, pretty far out. I won't go so far as to say that these experiences are necessary rites of passage on the way to a well-rounded adulthood, but I figured they had to be more enriching than snoozing in the back of a classroom. And then I'm just going to skip ahead a page or two here. College seems to be as much about making friends and connections as it is about actual learning. I've heard that at Oxford there's very little structured academic life. It's mostly just people drinking beer at pubs, engaging in all manner of intellectual exchange. If that's true, then this was my Oxford period. Except that instead of being brainy Rhodes scholars passionate about knowledge and destined to lead the world, we were comics passionate about dick jokes and destined for a spot on Premium Blend. But like our counterparts at Oxford, our lives were consumed with experimentation and exploration. One of my best friends during that time was Louis C.K., then and now a brilliant and prolific comic. Louis lived in a building on Bleecker Street called the Atrium, and it was one. The apartments looked down onto the first floor lobby. He owned almost nothing. His belongings consisted of a bed, a record player, and a computer. He used the walls for making notes. They were covered with scribbled reminders to himself, various lists, and people's phone numbers. At about 2 a.m. one night, we started daring each other to throw our clothes over the balcony down into the atrium. I don't remember who tossed the first article, but from there we took turns removing a single piece of clothing, dropping it into the void, and watching it float down to the lobby, sometimes catching on the branches of indoor hedges. Each round became more and more daring since we were less and less covered, until we were both naked. Totally naked. And just when you think you can't get more daring than that, we climbed into the elevator and rode it down to the lobby, giggling with terror at the possibility that the elevator could stop at any floor, or that once we got to the bottom, any number of residents could be walking in. The doors opened at lobby level, and we scrambled to gather our clothes and manically get dressed. We rode the elevator back up to Louis's floor, and as we approached the safety of his apartment, a shirt flew past his head and over the balcony. He turned to see me, shirtless again, wearing just a bra. We wound up doing 11 full cycles of this. We laughed harder each time, because in addition to the obvious risk of getting caught, there was the absurdity of the fact that we were doing the same fucking thing, chasing the same high over and over again. This must be why people bungee jump. The stunt was emblematic of our lives during that period. When all of your friends are comedians and you spend your life in a club hearing and telling jokes, it becomes ever more challenging to make each other laugh. I imagine it's like working in porn. After a while, missionary just doesn't cut it anymore. You need a midget and a monkey and a bottle of Head & Shoulders to get any kind of boner. Once, Louis and I were standing on the corner just outside my apartment making each other laugh. I had just woken up and thrown on a skirt and t-shirt to meet him for breakfast at the Waverly Diner downstairs. I said, "Louis, look down." He looked and I peed straight onto the sidewalk. Just a tiny bit. One single staccato, creating the onomatopoeia bloop. I was pretty convinced I was adorable. It's a pretty funny book. She goes on what it's like to do stand-up in New York and the people she meets and then making her show, getting on MTV. A lot of famous people, you know. But The Bedwetter, Sarah Silverman. Courage, Redemption, and Pee. Check it out.